Hi, my name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher, and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, August the 15th, and it is a smokingly hot Sunday. So generally the warmth is really fantastic and awesome, and I love that. The part that is not so good is that it is very, very smoky, which is not very good at all. Very indicative of the fires that are occurring to the west of us and an incredible lack of moisture. So even for people like me who love the sun and the warmth and all that good kind of stuff, we really do need some moisture. There's not a lot of it coming in the forecast, so cooler temperatures coming. So what I mean by smokingly hot, so high 80s, low 90s, which I know for many of you, particularly those of you in the southern US, those are not atypical temperatures for you. But for me and where I am located up here in Canada, those are not normally standard temperatures for us for the summer. Part of me really enjoys it. Don't really enjoy the forest fires. Really wish we'd had a little bit more rain, but there's technically nothing I can do about that. Anyway, if you are a new viewer, thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me. This is a channel about cross-stitching and the stitching that I have accomplished in the past week. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back and spending some time with me and watching my slow progress on some projects. I am not the fastest stitcher, so for some of you who think you are the slowest stitchers, you might enjoy this, because you'll see that I am not Gary from the Sunshine Stitchers, who, you know, spends 3 nights and like a Mirabilia is complete or something like that. A little bit of an exaggeration, but not horrendously. There were some questions on last week's video, and I'm going to address those questions at the very end of the video, just because for one of them I've got to pop in some video. They're likely going to come after we do the topic. So the topic for this week is planning for 2022, which I know for some of you may be going, what are you doing? Why are we talking about this? But you'll see why I'm choosing to talk about that at this point in time. And with that, let's get into the stitching that I've accomplished this week. So not surprisingly, oh, the other thing, because we're filming this in the sunroom and it's a smokingly hot day, I'm just going to warn you right now, this could be a very glowy video. Trying not to be too terribly glowy. I'm going to try to keep it fairly moving along this particular week, and maybe not make it one of my most lengthy ones, just because, you know, I'm worried about the level of glow that could be happening over here. Anyway, okay, what did I work on? So not surprisingly, it's another week with the Marbeck Nativity, or the Serendipity Nativity. If you are new, this is the infamous 5-panel nativity scene, working on the center panel, which is the last panel that needs to be done. And my goal for this week was to get all of the back stitching on the pink angel finished. And I can say successfully, it is done. So here is okay, the bottom part of the 2 angels on the center, the top of that center panel, both fully stitched, fully back stitched, and the beams are complete on both sides, which means there is only one thing left to go. It means that this week is beading week. So I am expecting that this is for sure going to be my focus piece for this week, so that I can get, so my goal is that all of the beading on the center panel is hopefully going to be complete by the time you see this next week. So for Charlotte, I may be emailing you at some point this week. Charlotte from the US has stitched this and has been incredibly helpful to me, particularly when I was, you know, having challenges with what I was doing with the camel. So she's stitched this. She knows exactly what it's like to stitch it and all that kind of stuff. And I am feeling like Charlotte may need to be there to, while she lives in the US and so not physically present, I am feeling like we might need to FaceTime so that she can watch the last couple of beads go in. So Charlotte, we might be emailing later this week. Anyway, so very happy with this. We are finally, after 472 years, finally, I'm calling this, we are finally coming into the home stretch on this project. And for some of you who've been there for the entire journey of the Never-Ending Nativity, isn't it going to be shocking when we get to a week where there's no nativity update? I know. Who knew that that week was ever going to come? All right, the second project, which is my August New Start. So this is Bee's Knees by Ink Circles? Yes. So this is my August New Start. And here is where I got to on this one. So I finished all of this bottom, this set of the motif down here, and then started working on the left one. I was hoping to get a little bit more of the left one done, but wasn't successful on that part. But not quite as much stitching as last week, but not bad. This piece will be coming out again for a couple of the questions. So I am doing this on a 32 count Lilac Lugana using the called for overdyed Valdani silk. So I'll just hold that up a little bit. The lighting here today is really weird. I'm attributing that to the smoke. I feel like everything is really, I feel like everything is quite gray, which feels a little bit weird. But the sun is out anyway. So there you go. Yeah. So happy with how that one's coming along. All right. So those are the two projects that I've worked on this week. Whoops, big bang. All right, stitch from stash. So I have successfully not bought anything this week. I've actually not ordered anything new this week, so that part's good. I still have a couple of orders that I've paid for that have yet to arrive that were actually ordered pre-July. I have an order that I've placed post-July, which has not yet arrived. Yeah, so I will say the interesting thing with the passing of Barb Adams from Blackbird Designs is watching all of the discussion going on about what's going to happen with Blackbird and Blackbird patterns and all this kind of stuff. And so I'm trying to be really well behaved about not trying to buy all the Blackbirds that I don't have that I maybe want. I'm trying to be really good. Okay, so I've ordered 2, which I feel is not that bad. But again, I'm like everybody else. I'm not exactly sure. Sorry, the bangs are bothering me. I'm not exactly sure what the plan is going forward, and they haven't come out and said anything specific. So you don't know either way. I do have Blackbird designs in my stash, which I have not stitched at all. So it's not like I don't have any Blackbirds to do. But I am trying to be good and not trying to buy the ones that are maybe, they might interest me and all that kind of stuff. So there are a couple that I've ordered. They have not yet arrived to me. So anyway, you'll see those when they come in. Those, but I've ordered them. I haven't paid for them, which is why they don't count towards Stitch from Stash yet. So at this point in time, so far, I'm in the black on my Stitch from Stash, but let's wait and see. Needlework Expo is coming up at the end of August as well. So I've been keeping my eyes out for the releases that are coming out from that. Fortunately, and I am very, very grateful that so far there has been not a lot that has been speaking to me, so that's great for me. There could be people out there that are going, everything I see is something for me, which is great. That's fantastic because that's for you. That's great. but I feel like the action, it's a little bit later coming out this month for this particular Needlework Expo, so we'll see how that goes. Again, I'm really hoping that they are things that don't necessarily appeal to me, just because I'm trying to do Stitch from Stash, which will also tie into the topic. So I do have some Stashquisitions to show you. These are from the Stashquisitions from pre-July. So I think we're really coming down to the end of it. I don't think I've got anything left in the stack. From the stack to show you. Technically, I did 2 really big purchases that will, one of them we'll probably talk about in September, October, somewhere in there. So there's a couple of bigger purchases, but we'll talk about, those are coming up in quite a few weeks. Anyway, it's not going to change anything for anybody. All right, so what did I add? So this is a piece of 22 count. I know, isn't this exciting? Wow, it's interesting. It's blowing at the camera. 22 count Antique White Oslo fabric. This is for a potential January 2022 start. We'll talk about this. We'll talk about this in a little bit again because of the topic. But so that's come into the stash. This was pre-July. The other piece I picked up was, this is a fat quarter of the 32 count Mint Splash Lugana by Zweigart. It's really quite, I don't know what's going on with it's really quite minty. I already had a piece of this in my stash, but there's a couple of things that are coming up. A couple of charts that I've got in my stash that I think that this would be good for, and it would mean that the wide quarter that I already have in my stash would not necessarily be enough to do the 3 or 4 charts that I think work on this. All right, then, so this is from Hands-On Design. So this is from their Squareology series. This is I feel like saying that this is an older series. I showed some of these a while ago. So this is from 2015. This is called Ahoy. It needs an anchor charm. I'm just looking at this. Just another Button Company anchor charm, which I do not have, so I probably need to look into getting that. Again, my thing about the charms and the beads and the buttons, as we've learned from Mirabilias over the years, is that you can't necessarily count on them always being available. I always think back to the Seaside Kingdom, that some of the original Mill Hill treasures that were called for on that chart are no longer being produced. So when I find ones where they've got charms and buttons and like Mill Hill treasures that are called for, I do try to get those because you just can't necessarily count on them being around. And then also from that same run of the Squareologies, this is called the Sandcastle. Oh, it's actually not called. I think it's called Ahoy. Are they both Ahoys? No. Ah, there we go. So they're from the Ahoy series called Sail Around and Sandcastle Frame. Clearly the sun and the warmth and the heat have gotten to me, so I'm clearly thinking about things. These were also from that order that I placed in the US. This was from their sale page, and so both of these were 50% off. So at the end of the day, I think they were $2.50 each US, which I think is a very reasonable price for a chart. This is from Waxing Moon Designs, called Springtime Says Hello. And it says, the air is filled with sweet perfume as the flowers grow. Joy is abundant everywhere. Springtime says hello. Again, so that's what that one looks like. And then this one from My Big Toe, Friends of the Family We Choose. Now, the called for colors here are Carriage Black and Cherry Bark. Carriage Black tends to be quite a gray black color, and the Cherry Bark, as far as I'm concerned, is kind of like a rusty brown. So I think when I would do this, I would turn this into navy and burgundy. Probably a brighter burgundy, but that's me. All right, so those are my Stashquisitions for this week. Again, these were all purchased pre-July 1, so they don't count towards my stitch from stash. The interesting thing for some of you is that as I've been showing these, you know, because as I got them, I piled them up until I showed them. And then as I show them, I put them in a pile. I am really, really behind in putting these into my X-Stitch app. So one of the things that I need to do, particularly over the next couple of weeks, is to make sure that all of those end up in my X-Stitch app, which I use to keep track of my charts and my fabric and my threads and all that kind of good stuff. All right, and with that, let's get into the topic. Let's talk preparing for 2022. Okay, so I know some of you are going to be sitting out there saying, why are we talking about this now? This is August. The summer is not over. My kids have not gotten back to school. I don't even like the discussions about people getting ready for Halloween, let alone the discussions about Christmas is coming. What in the world are you doing? You're really jumping the gun talking about 2022. And the answer is depends on what kind of a stitcher you are. So if you are someone who says stitch what you want, when you want, whenever it comes up and all that kind of stuff, that's great. You're not going to like all my planning things. I do tend to plan a little bit. Okay, I didn't used to be a plan ahead, but this is one of the after effects of the pandemic and being at home more and having more time to stitch, is that I've actually turned into someone who is a planner. And it started when I came up with my 2021 stitching plan, which I really enjoyed. I loved coming up with it. I've loved working on it this year. I came up with a 5-year plan. And just because you have a plan doesn't mean that it can't change or you can't swap things out or do whatever. It's just a plan. It's not rules. There's no cross-stitch police. So I came up with my 5-year plan. So I have my 2022 stitching plan. As I said on last week's video, even then, I think my November plan is changing a little bit because of that chart that I bought. But anyway, but now is when I've talked about this before. So I have my 2022 stitching plan. I've been periodically over the past number of months looking at my stitching plan, putting those charts together and putting them in bags. And I've got a basket that I'm putting them into. One of these weeks I should show you that. Probably later in December I'll show you what that basket looks like because I'm putting things together. But the reason why I'm bringing this up now is because of supply chain issues. So I would say for the most part, stitchers have cottoned on to the fact that there are supply chain issues that are impacting our craft and our stores, whether they are physicals, brick and mortar stores that we go to, or the online stores that we shop at, that there are still supply chain issues. And it was interesting because I was reading an article this week about how long this was not specific to cross stitching. This is like what's going on, why are supply chain issues still going on, and the issues with container ships coming through, and what that was meaning for just generic retail shops, what it was going to mean for the Christmas shopping season, what they were expecting to do with prices. So the cost of shipping is going up regularly, and in some cases quite a bit. So so my expectation is that you are probably going to see price increases if you are ordering things from places where they need to ship to you. Don't be surprised if you see your shipping costs going up. And again, it has nothing to do with the store. It has nothing, the store is not going to largely have any ability to change that. You know, as they experience those cost increases, they are going to have to pass them on to the customer. That's just how that works in business. They can't absorb it all. And again, as I've said before, most of the shops that we stitchers generally shop with are small retail businesses, right? So they are not Amazon. Their ability to do things can be more limited. So again, I'm expecting that shipping costs are going to be going up. Again, this is just the business reading that I've been doing in other things, and I'm expecting that's going to happen here as well. The supply chain issues continue to be a factor. Fabrics. So the big thing for me, now don't get me wrong, I have a stash of fabrics, and given my Stitch from Stash goal that I'm trying to set for myself and trying to be successful at, anyway, I am having to look at my 2022 plan and get my fabrics pulled together, because if I need to order fabrics for whatever reason, I probably need to get those orders in sooner as opposed to later. So for example, if I was planning on a January 1, which I'm doing these days, so January 1, new year, new start. If I was planning on using a Picture This Plus fabric, or an R&R fabric, or a Lakeside linen fabric, or a Fabrics by Stephanie fabric, I'm just trying to name some random, I'm not picking on these companies, don't read into that. I just know that those companies, like, they're having a struggle, and it has nothing to do with the companies themselves. If I want to do it on one of those hand dyed type fabrics, if I don't have that in my stash right now, I need to order that pretty quickly. If it's Picture This Plus, that ship has sailed. What I'm seeing from Picture This Plus is that, so if I were to place an order now for Picture This Plus, and the store does not already have it on order, and it hasn't already been spoken for, I would say anywhere from 8 to 10 months before my LNS would receive that fabric. That's just how far they're running behind. That's just a fact of life. So the problem is that the pandemic, we all stayed home and we stitched, and people came back and discovered that the stitching world had changed, and so lots of orders were coming in, but there are issues about getting the base fabric to dye. There are issues with dyes, so some dyes are no longer being manufactured, or they can be manufactured, but they've changed somewhat, which means the way, the dye recipe for fabrics, used to be X, but because the dyes have changed over, since the pandemic started, that they're having to reformulate how they're coming up with things. Anyway, it's just causing chaos in the system. And again, so some of these, like Lakeside Linen, that is a one-person show, right? That is one person who is dyeing all of that fabric by themselves. Fabrics by Stephanie, that's a one-person show. I don't know that Picture This Plus is a one-person show, but I really know that they're running behind. And again, this is through no fault of their own. So whether it's base fabric, dye issues, spacing requirements for the locations that they are, the fact that at the beginning of the pandemic, locations were closed down, but the orders kept pouring in, they're behind. That's just a fact of life. And so hence I've really got I've been doing not too bad about pulling the charts out and looking at the specialty fibers, but I haven't done as some of the fabrics I've been looking at, and that's already been done and looked after, but I don't have it for everything. So again, like I'm saying, over the next couple of weeks, I really do need to buckle down and look at my fabric situation. Again, according to me, I should have enough in my stash that I should not be wanting to order anything. But if I do need to order it, I need to order it soon. And again, if it's for some of these hand dyers, like it easily could be many, many, many months, right? So let's pretend Picture This Plus, it's the worst case scenario. It's 10 months. If I order it now and it goes in like on the first week of September, June is when the fabric might be showing up, right? So something to think about. If you've got some specific projects that you're really, really wanting to work on in 2022, even plans subject to change, and things can change all the time and new things come up, and I get all of that. My answer is I would encourage you to look at those projects sooner as opposed to later. Get your orders in, keep them. So pick a store that you're going to place it with. Look at what your store's policies are. So again, like for my local needlework shop, so Traditional Stitches, you place your order, they keep your order for you, and then as soon as they get it, they fill the orders based on the date the order was placed, right? So again, so some people are saying like, well, you know, if you've got Picture This Plus fabrics coming in, why can't I get some of that? Well, the Picture This Plus fabric order that's coming in whenever the next one's coming in, chances are likely that the people who ordered that fabric ordered it like 8 to 10 months ago. And again, so any order past that, you know, I know when Janice places her order, she's always ordering things for the shop. But again, by the time a shipment shows up 8 to 10 months later, trust me, that fabric is spoken for. So pick a shop, place your order, keep it on order, and then be patient. So, and again, to a certain extent, the fibers are doing a little bit better. So cottons are doing a little bit better. Weeks is not too bad, although there are colors that are still, you can't necessarily count on them coming, like I would say like in the first order or the second order. They come not as long as 8 to 10 months, but you don't get all the colors. Gentle Arts is way behind, and some of those colors, I was watching somebody reading online somewhere where they're like going, there are certain colors that they haven't seen and haven't been able to get for at least 6 months, if not could have been up to a year. And for Gentle Arts, that doesn't surprise me. So again, if you've got Gentle Arts colors that you think you're going to need for 2022, you probably need to place those orders now because they might show up. Some of them are not too bad, but some of the Gentle Arts colors are, the one that I'm thinking of is, in particular, is Black Raspberry Jam. It's been mentioned a few times on things that I've been looking at where people can't find it. They can't find the Black Raspberry Jam. I sit here and go like, I've got a skein of that in my stash, thank heavens. I actually need it for my November project, but it's already kitted and in the bag. And thankfully, I was kitting that from fibers that I had in my stash, because I think even in 2021, over the course of 2021, if I had placed an order for Black Raspberry Jam with any shop for Gentle Arts, I think at this point it still would not be filled. And I don't know that they have a timeline for when it will be filled. And that's just sort of a factor of the times we are currently living in. So while you're doing your planning for 2022, if you do that, so if you don't like planning ahead, then you aren't going to care much about what I'm doing. But yes, I've planned out for the most part my 2022. I've got the charts pulled out. I've been picking up the fibers and trying to get those kitted up. I've got to do fabrics. But as I was doing that, one of the interesting things that I have been doing, so this is not the final version of these things, but it is, when you're looking at your charts, it's always interesting to see what designers are doing with how they're talking about their fibers, because they are not consistent. So particularly when you were talking about hand-dyed fibers, sometimes they give you the number, sometimes they give you the name, Some designers actually give you both, which is really, really helpful, but I would say that's more of the minority. And so as I was working on my 2022 plan, I was, and trying to kit those up, I was going like, it's always interesting when you haul out a chart and you go like, ugh, and again, the way that I've got my stash, I tend to store my hand-dyed fibers, so Weeks, Gentle Arts, Classic Color Works, the few cotton and colors that I have, I tend to keep them organized by name. I keep them alphabetically, not numerically. And sometimes when you're looking at a chart, when they go Weeks Dye Works, fill in the number, I would look at that and go like, that gives me no help. And so over the course of working on my 5-year plan, or in particular as I've been working through 2022, I have been finding these lovely things and printing them out. Now, as I say, these are not the final versions of how I'm planning on keeping them, but, so for example, I'm just trying to look at what I've actually got here. I should have organized this earlier, but, okay. So for example, here is Weeks Dye Works. And so you can get this directly off of the Weeks Dye Works page. And the links to all of these documents are going to be in the notes below. So on the Weeks Dye Works page, you can actually print out either in numerical order or in alphabetical order all of the current flosses that are in their line. And so for me, I have, did I do this alphabetically? Yes, this is the alphabetical one. Somewhere in this pile, there's got to be a numerical one. I've got both of them. So what I'm doing is I'm printing them out, and my next step is I need to put them all in page protectors, and then I'm going to have a little binder that has all of these documents together. So I will have the alphabetical in case, for whatever reason, well, like I said, if I'm ordering it from somewhere, a lot of the places you have to order it by number, right? So if I had one and I was looking for, let's pick something, blue bonnet, I could find it on here and it would give me the number, and then I would know which number to order. If I'm looking at a chart and they have it in Weeks Dye Works numbers only, no names, then I would need to go to the numerical one for this, find the number and get the name, and then I would know what to do. So both of these I have printed out. I just don't know if it's in this big collection I've got. So Weeks Dye Works has it alphabetically and numerically. This is the Gentle Art version. And again, so I've printed these out double-sided just to cut down on the number of pieces of paper that I'm printing out. And again, like I say, I am planning on putting these in sheet protectors and putting them in a binder so that I kind of have my master reference list of fibers. So Weeks Dye Works, Gentle Arts. This is my, Caron Collection. And so the Caron Collection, so it's got these multiple columns over here. And so what this means is, let me just pick one that I know for sure. Okay. So it shows you in, so watercolors, wildflowers, water lilies, and impressions are kind of the 4 lines that they've got. And so what it's got here is it's got, is this numerical? Yeah, this is the numerical version that I'm looking at, but it shows you if it's blank, that means it's available in that type of fiber. When it's shaded gray, it means that you can't get that particular color in, like here, in those 2 colorways. So whatever this one is, you can get it in 2 of their lines, but not 2 of the other ones. The one below it, you can get it in all 4 of them. So that's my Caron printout. And again, so I've got it both numerically and alphabetically. This is, so the Valdani one, I came across, there we go, Weeks Dye Works. Here's the numerical version. I should keep that together. Okay, Valdani actually has it. So this actually was, so I printed this out in color because this is effectively a color card for them. So this is by number order, and their numbering system is incredibly atypical. So I've printed this out double-sided to put it into my reference list. So this is these are the variegated, and then they've got one for the solids. That was my Gentle Arts Numerical. Okay, and then I've printed out color and cotton. So I have a very limited amount of color and cotton in my thread collection, but while I was on my hunt for the master lists, I thought I would print this one out anyway, just so I had it as a reference. Yes, this has numbers as well. Anyway, so I've got all of those printed out. Now, my next step is, now that I've shown all of you, is I just need to get them into their covers, their protective covers, sheet covers. There we go. And the interesting thing about doing it this time of year is because the school supplies are on sale and readily available. So what I will want to get is a very small binder to put this in that will stand out from the rest of the binders that stay in the closet where I keep my stash. But this is the time of the year where I clearly need to go to a Staples, Walmart, something, have a look at their binders and look for a small one, because I'm going to want a pretty one. So I'm probably not going to one that is a solid color, so I'll have to find something that appeals to me. Even on Amazon, find a binder, because that will make it stand out from the other things that I have. The particular closet where I keep my stash has other things. It has sort of my music library in there and some Christmas things, and so there are already other binders in there. So I will need something that's distinctive to stand out, and don't get me wrong, it will, you know, stay on the side of the closet where the stitching stash is. But so that's the plan. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks I will find my binder and I will get those in. I will probably bring it back and I will show you that. But certainly as I was working through my 2022 kitting process, these were invaluable. Again, because depending on and having them there when I was kitting it, working out of the closet, you know, I meant that I had all the reference materials there. So depending on what the chart was and how the information was provided, I would know what to do with it. So that is the topic for this week, saying, hey, if you've got, again, particularly if you've got some stuff in your stash that you're going, I really, really want to work on this in 2022, I am strongly encouraging you to have a look at those projects, see what you've already got in your stash, see what you're missing, and start sourcing it. If it's DMC, I'm not necessarily worried about those ones, but it's the specialty fibers, hand-dyed fabrics, buttons, beads, all that kind of stuff. I would work on that sooner as opposed to later. So yes, in my head, I've got 3 or 4 colors of thread gatherer silken colors that I need to, so I haven't placed my order for that. Now, again, I don't need them right off the get-go. So for example, my January 2022 plan, I'm feeling pretty good about. Yeah, all sorts of differences for what my plans are for 2022 and how I'm going to approach my stitching. Again, so 2021 was the year of start all of these projects. So start 12 new projects, work on them. Some of them got finished. A lot of them did not get finished, and that was okay. The point was to start stitching the stash. That was my big goal. And so far, I'm very happy with how that's gone. A lot of those projects are being carried over to 2022, which I'm totally fine with. I'm working them into the plan for what I'm stitching in 2022. I've been watching some Flosstubers again, because we all know I have not found my optimal, I've lost all the thing. you know, how often I'm changing which charts I'm working on and all that kind of stuff. So still working on that, but I've been watching some different people and watching how they're approaching it, some of which it really appeals to me, some of which isn't. Some of them I tried in 2021 and discovered that does not work for me. You know, for example, the big one was stitching on a project for 30 minutes to an hour every day and then working on something else. That is not a good plan for me. So anyway, and again, so this, I will tell you right now, I have a new start for January 1st, new year, new start. I have a new start planned for that. And I've got other things that I've planned working on in January, which is, again, so this piece is not for my new year, new start, but my expectation is I will have a new year, new start that I will be able to finish. Hopefully it won't take all of January. Hopefully I'll be able to finish it in the first half of January, which gives me half of January to work on other things. This is factoring into that, so I've got this piece of fabric. Again, this was this 22 count Oslo Antique White. So again, this, now that I've shown it, this is going to go into its bag, project bag. Again, my project bags are from Amazon. And if you go back and look, I will link back to that video because I've got one on the things that how I do my organizing. I will link back to that video because it's got, again, I don't have the super duper lovely fabric project bags because I was going for volume. Anyway, those are off of Amazon. All right, and that is the end. Again, like I say, if you've got anything you know you want to work on in 2022, really, I'm saying please, please, please have a look at that and see if you need to order anything. Because I really am saying you might want to order that now to make sure that you can get it hopefully in time for when you think you're going to want to start working on that project in 2022. And again, for some of those ones, like I say, even if you ordered right now, for example, if it were Picture This Plus, you could order now and you would not be able to get it potentially until June. Anyway, and like I say, from all the reading that I've been doing on sort of what's happening with supply chain issues and all that kind of stuff, the answer is, and it's very prevalent, like you see it in all the articles on what's happening with cars, like car production. They've closed down plants, they can't get the chips, there's shipping container problems, there's somebody was commenting on the backlog in clothing and what were they going to, like, there are stores that are going like, oh my goodness, like we're so far behind in getting what we've already ordered. Are we going to have anything for the Christmas shopping? So, okay, maybe start working on the Christmas shopping now. Anyway, it sounds really horrible, but I'm feeling like I've actually got a decent chunk of my Christmas shopping well in hand. Sounds weird, but anyway, never mind that. All right, that really is the topic. I'm off of that topic. Let's deal with some questions. So one, I should have done this at the beginning. I hope everybody enjoyed World Cross Stitch Day because that was the topic for last week. So World Cross Stitch Day was Friday, August the 13th. So I very successfully stitched on Friday, August the 13th. I worked on the bee's knees. And like I say, I hope everybody found some time to do some stitching. It didn't need to necessarily be a long amount of time, but I hope you took the time to stitch that day and to think about how great it is with all the technology that we have, that we are able to have this global community of stitchers that we can interact with and see what people are working on all over the world and all that kind of stuff, because I think it's been fantastic. It's always interesting to see what people in Australia are doing, and Africa and Europe and all over the globe, and just the big reminders about what a global craft this is, and that it really does connect all of us together as stitchers. Okay, one of the questions that I got last week, I had sort of was talking about my tacky bob, and one of the questions was like, I thought a tacky bob was a CD case. And the answer is, a tacky bob is not, it's not necessarily a CD case. And what is the difference? Well, the difference is the size. So here is the tacky bob that I was showing when I was working on my Mill Hill kit from July. And here is a CD case that I have. And yes, I'm showing it. It's the piano guys, and I really enjoy a lot of their music. I will put a link to their YouTube channel for fun. So if you want to listen to any of their music, I will put a link to their YouTube channel. They've got a bunch of videos. Anyway, they have physical CDs. You can get them on iTunes, Spotify, all the regular things. Anyway, piano guys. Anyway, so this is the difference. Do they technically work the same way? Yes. CD case opens up. And this and again, so the reason why I like the tacky bob, and here's my proof, I took all my beads off, which you saw before, but the thing that I like about a tacky bob as opposed to like a beading mat is the fact that I can put them on here and then I can close it up, which means it doesn't collect dust or hair or fibers or whatever it is. So that's why I like the tacky bobs that I have. I've said this before, as far as I know, they are no longer making tacky bobs. If any of you know if tacky bobs are still being made or where you can get them, so they aren't available at any of my LNSs or from the stores that I order from. But if anybody out there knows where a source is, please, please, please put it in the comments down below so that somebody else could find them. Like I say, I've got a few of these in my collection and I'm hoarding them like nobody's business because I know that I can't get them anymore. So not helpful to new stitchers, and I get that. But like I say, if you found, all you would need to do is, you know, find this type of a case, which is where I was kind of like if you could, you know, find an empty CD case, and you could get sort of cut that beading mat into here. Now, whether or not it would be double-sided, I don't know. Like, I haven't tried to do that because I've got the tacky bobs. But again, that's the big difference. It's really just a size factor. Okay. Okay. So there were a couple of comments on last week's video. So thank you for the people who appreciate how I talk about my approach to variegated threads. And again, particularly how I was approaching it on this particular piece. I will absolutely say that I probably spend more time thinking about this than you necessarily need to do. And that just plays into my personality. I always laugh because my framer, well, my former framer, he's since retired, kind of laughed because he's like going, when he was framing some of my stuff, he's like, you really like geometrics. Things that are very geometric and balanced and equivalent. That's very much how you, things that appeal to you visually and how you approach your framing and all this kind of stuff. And again, so when I'm working on this type of a project where it's got motifs that are repetitive, but you've got this highly variegated floss that you're using, I really do think about how I'm using my floss. And again, for me, I'm looking for things so that I feel like my project is coming out balanced and that there's some of the colors in all of the parts. Now again, if you looked at this, it would be weird if I got this and this was only one color and it didn't have the variegated in there. But again, I'm just looking for how I'm approaching the balance in that and how it's pulling together. And again, this was my first one. I feel like my second one's coming along a little bit better. So bottom, then left, then I will do the right one, and the top one is going to be my last one, because by then it will be the third time that I've done this version, this particular motif. So I feel like I will know how I want the colors to flow. I'm happy with everything that I've stitched and how the colors are coming together. But it is different when you're stitching this way versus when you're stitching this way, versus it's going to be more similar when I go this way, right? But again, stitching this and stitching this are two, your path around here is different than how it is when you're doing it this way, because you're coming out, because I'm stitching, you know, from right to left as opposed to top to bottom, right? So it's a slightly different path around the exact same motif. And so that's, again, that's factoring into how I approach how I'm using this. Okay. And then the last the last question had to do with about me talking about, so these again, so I'm doing this on my handy clamp set of scroll rods, and Barbara asked if I could show how I approach using my ribbon and my batting. So after this is, I'm just going to insert the video again. It's in my little setup that I've got where you're looking down on thing. I hope it's going to help. It's actually not that complicated. But again, I found this in a Facebook group where they were talking about this and things that they found helpful. And it, for as far as I'm concerned, oh yeah, like I wouldn't approach using these particular scroll rods without using this. But I will show you just quickly how I get them off and why they are helpful. So the video is about how I get the fabric and the project onto the scroll frame. This is a quick, slightly quick demo about how I get it off. And it will also sort of speak to how tight the clamping is on the handy clamp. Okay, so I've got off my thing. Here are my, so I will unroll it, take out my batting. Here is the top, and again, so the point of the ribbon is that it's got to be cut longer than the scroll rods by, you know, I'm calling this a good 3 inches on both sides, because this is what you're going to grab. So here I am, I hold on to the top here, I grab this ribbon, which is inside the clamp, and that's how I pull it off. And like I say, when I first got these, I tried pulling them off all by myself, which was not good. I ended up sliding them off, and it's like, they're not kidding in that Facebook group about how critical it is to have this ribbon in here. And yeah, so with that, I have had no issues about getting my project in and out of my handy clamp. But I absolutely would say I would not try the handy clamp without doing this. 1 inch ribbon, just inserted into the inside of this clamp. And again, 1 inch is, again, it's not rolling over the edges, and it's been in my clamp long enough. It doesn't fall out at all. But yeah, that and the batting, as far as I'm concerned, I'm so grateful to the people on the Facebook group for having put that information on there, because that's been really fantastic. And I am finding my tension on these is really quite good. And again, what I really like about these is how easy it is to get a project on and off, right? You can see, right? It took nothing to get that off. So for me to switch out a project from this, like, so when I get to the end of August and I have not finished this, you know, it's going to be super easy for me to take this off and roll this up and put it into its project bag, and then put my September project straight on. Could even be on the same set of clamps. I haven't figured out, I don't remember off the top of my head what the measurements of that one are, whether it belongs on this or whether I'd put it on my roller frame. But again, it's so easy to take a project on and off of this. It was interesting because I was watching the Sunshine Stitchers, and both Gary and Sheila really like the roller frame, and I like the roller frame too. But it's interesting hearing them talk about how sort of once they got something set up on the roller frame, they didn't want to take it off, which was really interesting to me, because I do think the roller frame is not bad for getting it set up on and for taking it off. But yeah, see, I'm still going, I think the handy clamp may edge it out a little bit, just because if you're that worried about setting up your edges and getting it onto those nails in the roller frame, and that you are hesitant about taking it off, like I don't think anything of, like, so I took the project off to film the video clip and I put it back on for this. I've just sat here and I've taken off one end of it again for this part of the video, and you know, I don't think anything about my ability to put it back on for stitching on it, you know, tonight. So again, still trying to decide between the roller frame and the handy clamp, but I think the handy clamp may actually be winning out a bit. Anyway, and with that, here comes the video of me putting a project onto my handy clamp, and that video is coming in here. Okay, so the question I'm answering right now is, how do I set up my handy clamps? Because as I talked before, I use ribbon and batting when I'm using this particular set of scroll rods. So as you can see, so here is the clamp that goes on them. And what I do is I take a long piece of 1-inch ribbon and just cut it. It's clearly got to be longer than the scroll rods because you want something to grab onto. So just cut that, and I insert the ribbon straight into the scroll rod. And so I've got that on both of those the clamps that go on them. So then when I am putting the stitching into it, clearly start one at a time. Okay, so I come along and then I actually insert the fabric into the clamp side first. Now this is where I'm trying to get it so that it is even with a little bit hanging out. And of course it's going to take me 3 tries because I'm doing this on camera. I'm also trying to make sure it's centered reasonably decently in this particular clamp. So ribbon, then fabric inserted, and then I come along and actually I've got to get a little bit more of the fabric here. And clamp. So then just for positioning, I roll this up because you're going to want to make sure that when you're doing the other side that it is coming out relatively even so that your tension when you're putting it when you're working on it is similar. So same thing again, I just come along trying to make sure, again, I should show the ends here. Right, so you're just trying to make sure that the ends are sort of lining up reasonably similarly. And again, before you throw this into the clamp, making sure that the dowels themselves are actually quite reasonably lined up, and then throwing it in. So then the next question is, so what do I do with the batting? And really what happens is that as I'm scrolling this up, so you'll see that I've started here. It's really just that first roll, and then I insert my piece of batting. So it's right up against the scroll rod. And then, because that way it will ensure that this lip gets covered. Now, I'm doing it really firmly against the scroll rod because of where the pattern is positioned on this particular one.
as I'm moving it down, I will probably pull it out a little bit more so that this is better, that this side is better covered, because at that far edge, it'll probably not, you know, when I get to do the end part, the front part of this scroll is probably not going to be rolled up. Anyway, so that's how I insert my batting for the purposes of how I use my handy clamps. I hope that was helpful. I feel like this is a little dark, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay, so I hope that was helpful, Barbara. If you've got, as usual, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, topics you would like me to address, please feel free to put them in the comments down below. Always happy to address those. And with that, I hope everybody has a great stitching week. I hope everybody is staying safe. I hope everybody is staying healthy. If you're in any of the places where there are the forest fires, or again, we've had weird weather again, we've had people where there's been huge storms and the power's been out and all that kind of stuff. Okay, safety first, safety first, safety first. I'm always most worried about the people where the forest fires are, because those things can change very quickly. If you're in a forest fire area, please make sure that you've got a go bag ready to go, so that if you need to go in a hurry, you can. So safety first, stay safe, stay safe. It's summer and I know I could go into boating and swims and all the things. Please stay safe. Safety first, safety first. Stay safe, stay healthy, find some time to do some stitching, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great week, guys.